I was on. How you guys doing? It's Cinnamon Cooney, your art Sherpa. Big art quest. Bark, 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 bark. No?
Yes, Bark, you're on. You're good.
No, it's going through the cycle of things.
I know. It's because you're still seeing things that I'm switching for you.
Oh, okay. I don't know what to say or do.
Say hi.
Hi! That was crazy on my monitor.
This is what you're seeing on the outside.
Yeah. No. Had no idea. It was all of a sudden it was the intro again and then some bark pictures.
Yeah, what you're seeing now isn't necessarily what they're seeing.
That's confusing. But you know what? As long as you're not confused, we are achieving our goal. Honestly, we got new equipment.
Yeah, you have new equipment.
New equipment. And I now have to learn to ignore the monitor on a further level. So we're going to talk about bark today. So far in our art journey as the artists that we are, we've been doing what I like to think of as mostly sort of a decorative tree, right? We've talked about the design of a tree, how a tree is built, about the branches tapering and how it attaches to the earth and the way that we can break off branches and maybe get away from making antlers and, getting our branches long enough and those kinds of decorative elements. But on the quest, we're starting to get more into how we actually paint things. And one of the things that we need to sort of master is that all things, there's this sort of funny spiritual thing in art where all things are the same thing. Because you're really just painting on this flat surface, imaginary stuff that you're pretending is here, and you're doing that. You tell truth by using illusion. Mm-hmm. So today we're going to talk about some different barks and how we might get those techniques. We are not going to use a wood grainer today.
What?
A wood grainer, which I think is a fabulous tool and can be, and I actually think it's okay to use on a regular canvas, can be a great way to get grain in. We may do that on its own thing.
I didn't even know that existed.
Yeah, no, it's a little rubbery curve thing. You can get them at Walmart. You can get them anywhere.
That's like a stamp?
Yeah, it's like a stamp, and you just go, you make this weird little motion, and it makes it look like wood grain.
We got to get one of those for later.
Yeah,
fun.
We'll do that for like some of our one hoot stuff. But this is we're questing.
Yeah, this is how we learn how to do it, not stamp it.
We're not stamping it. Not that there is a darn thing wrong with stamping, because there is not.
Well, maybe you'll use that later for speed.
Yeah, there's reasons to use everything, and my 2 cents in art is to never get caught up in what is right or wrong, or what is cheating or what is not cheating. Unless it comes to the legality, then yeah, definitely be on point with that. But for the purposes of how you create or construct or fabricate your art, these are just skills, and you're just assembling them to get your point across. So I have this series of projects I've been wanting to do with you guys, and to do them, we've got to kind of get these bark concepts down, and I want at least a few people that can paint them.
Well, we have a huge community here with us.
Do we?
Yeah, we got over like 170 people here. They really love your lipstick.
Thank you. I did an ombre. I've been watching makeup tutorials.
Oh, did you?
I think it's helping.
Oh, I love it.
Thank you.
And Leanne would like to give a big shout out to the brush guys from all around the world. Her and a lot of her friends, a lot of the Sherpettes around the world really get a lot of help from the brush guys to send stuff out, and they're just wanting to say that in chat that they thank them.
I am really, really glad to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah,
I like them. I want to continue liking them.
Yeah, they've been really great to you guys.
Yeah.
We've had a great time when we've hung out with them. We've done a couple of videos we still have to release. So yeah, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Go over to the brush guys. They have a coupon code for our Sherpettes.
They do?
Yeah,
that's right. They do.
Right. That's right. The Art Sherpa will give you 5% off at the brush guys.
It's all one word though, right?
Yeah, the Art Sherpa, one word.
Yeah.
And we have our own place.
Because there's been some like coupon confusion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's from you guys. You guys think it's you. It's not. It's my mom.
Oh. Okay.
Because she's so sweet. This is how sweet my mom is. She uses the coupon. So I get the points. Is that a good mom? That's really a good mom.
Vito here is a committed fan, because Vito figures that before they'd catch the tutorial with you before they decided whether or not to evacuate. They're in Key West. So there's a
No, evacuate. It's like on YouTube forever. Flee. I live in Hurricane Alley too. Flee.
We're in Houston. Everything.
We're in Houston. I get this. It's on YouTube. It's totally cool. You know, you could be on your phone driving in the car. Away.
Yeah.
Away. Everyone. If you can afford to not be in a power outage in the middle of a storm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we cannot always. So.
No. But we got a generator.
We have a generator now.
Yeah.
I want to do my first tip, and I'm going to do this at the beginning for the people who might be like, oh my gosh, it's going to talk so much.
Yeah, we're going to talk. So bark, bark, bark.
Right?
Bark.
So one of the things that I really like to have is in these kinds of things is rough brushes. So I've got this old beat up 1/2 inch angle brush, what's really under a 1/2 inch. And then I've got my brush you've seen me do clouds with and a bunch of stuff. I'll hold it over here so John's camera
There you go. Hold on. Zoom
can
on it.
see them really up close. Right? So these are natural bristles. This is quite a stiff, thick brush. This brush is very battered and beat up, and I have made no effort to repair it because honestly, it's quite useful in this state. But these can be hard to come across. Generally, when you're looking for this, you'll find some version of this. And you're going to notice some differences between these two brushes, right? Is that this round's bristles are longer and they're not as thick. See the difference in the thickness of the ferrule?
Uh-huh.
This is like half. So it's not as robust, and look how this splays out and then this splays out. It's a different splay.
Yeah.
So it can mess with your effect. The fix to this is you'll see that I've taped this one.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Where's my tape? There's my tape. All you got to do, and this is if you get a stippler from the craft section, that's where the stipplers are, or if you get one of these rounds and it's too long, it is okay, not if you spend $100 on the brush, but if you got it at a reasonable amount of money, to shorten the bristles with the tape like this.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And then you can get a stiffer, more controllable space. So that's just a quick fix that can help you and make, even a very inexpensive brush much more functional. This starts to become competitive with this once I tape it.
Gotcha.
So, just an interesting thing you might not know. We're going to start out with the knot of a tree.
The knot of a tree?
The knot of a tree. And I'm looking at my tree deciding what's knotty. I'm going to use some ultramarine blue. I've got a lot of my paint colors out.
So while you're talking about your paint colors, they really like that little crimpy thing you got going on there with your paint.
Oh, this?
How'd you do that?
Oh, do you want to grab the tool out? I will tell you.
Sure, I'll grab it.
I will share with you. We're going to do a video on it, but I will share with you guys that show up for lives. So you get to know. And put out some burnt sienna. Are they on palette or on the bark? Okay. I'm going to have to get used to this new reality.
You want me to switch back?
No. It's okay. You are in charge of the horizontal and the vertical. I put out some burnt sienna.
You can squeeze that part.
Here, you do it because you're good at it. Stun-hand it. So this I got from Amazon. I can put up the link. There's a bunch of different ones of these. This one I like because it's all metal and it doesn't break and it holds up against different types of paint tubes. And what it basically does is squeeze them up, and it's a good way to save money.
You don't want to over squeeze it.
Because the caps will pop off and all the paint will go and it's very comical. The paint that's on here was because one of the Matisse tubes was weakened, the metal tubes was weakened, and it cracked in the middle, which we had to tape it out. But this is what this is. This is a tube ringer by the Gill Mechanical Company of Eugene, Oregon. They have these on Amazon, and I got this one because some of the other ones are plastic and break, and that annoys me. I'm like, well, now I haven't saved any money, have I? No.
So, hello from Spain.
Hello from Spain. Hi, I've been to Spain. I think Gaudi is one. I love Gaudi and I love Dali, but I love all the Gaudi architecture.
Yeah.
I think the church is extraordinary, and I love the Spanish coast.
Oh yeah.
Just love it, love it, love it. I'm gonna put out some hooker's green, which could also be sap green. What you want is one of these deep foresty greens.
Yeah.
I'm putting out a bunch of colors because, believe it or not, bark is quite colorful. Now, if you were to say paint a rainbow eucalyptus, it's like literally a rainbow. It's crazy how colorful that is.
Mm-hmm.
We'll put out some yellow ochre.
Everybody loves the little crimpery thing.
Crimper thing is a really cool thing.
So we'll put a link in the crimper for the crimper.
We'll put a link to the crimper thing. We'll put a link.
Make it easy to find.
It'll be an affiliate link. It will probably benefit us in some way, but we'll put it up. And you're welcome also just to use the name and check it out yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We are all good with all of that. I'm putting out a lot of colors because, again, when I do bark, I like to have some different colors. I'm putting out some Australian sienna. If you don't have the Australian sienna, go ahead and just put out like a cad yellow light or something. You just want a light.
Yeah, Janine says she has one of those tube rollers. We got one of those too. They don't work too great. They can. You have to, but you can struggle with them. And then once
That phthalo blue I'm putting out. Just letting people know what.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Oh no.
Okay.
You're good.
So I'm putting out a lot of color, and you're like, wow, that's a lot of color. Well, as I go through and paint the bark, I want to have all my ingredients. If you think of me as like a chef or whatever, I want all my ingredients to paint this. So when I'm deciding what to do, and I'm going to grab a number 6 battered and abused little bright here. This is a number 6 bright. What's happened to it is I've let it soak in, so all the coating pops off. This is by Simply Simmons, and it's an extra firm filament. So what I really love about this, what I like is when the filaments are firm, because then they let me do a lot of dry brushing. I'm going to be doing a lot of dry brushing. First thing that I'm going to do, if you're at home and you can grab just any picture off the internet of a naughty knot on a naughty tree, it's a badly behaved tree, you can do this along with me. So I'm going to paint this knot, and I'm going to look for first my darkest value in my tree, which is its deepest shadow, and I'm going to create a chromatic version of that. So I think in this case I'm going to take some cad red over to my ultramarine, and I'm going to make this my chromatic black.
Will a yellow ochre deep work?
Yeah, you could use a yellow ochre deep.
Okay.
I might even add some burnt here. I just want a deep color. You've done this with Mom. I grabbed some dogs, and I'm just getting a very deep color that's going to be, and I'm going to paint some area I'm going to say, this will be my bark.
Now, they were asking about that tube crimper. It does work on the plastic tubes, too.
Yep.
You do have to be kind of careful on, again, don't over squeeze them.
Don't over squeeze them.
And the little metal sleevey things that go on the end of the tube that roll them up like a toothpaste roller kind of thing. Personally, I found that those are more frustrating than they are functional, and you're better off to get yourself a good crimper.
I find that to be true myself.
So, and
John
I think
has had to pick up the messes.
Janine agrees. So it's like, I don't know about
it's
that.
also your fingers work. You don't have to buy a tool.
Yeah, you can. There's other, you can use the edge of a desk.
Yeah.
You can, and especially the metal tubes, it's just about working that paint out. The crimper is just a super convenient way of doing it.
Something, and we're going to even make a whole video about this, something I really, and especially in the questers, if you're coming along your first time here, look, none of these tools, you don't have to buy an upgraded paint to be happy. You don't have to buy a crimper to be happy. Painting at all is going to make you happy, and then as you're enjoying your creative process, if you choose to change out tools to supplement that experience, that's perfectly okay. But number 2 pencil and lined paper, still powerful creativity. So don't get too stressed out or worried about having to have some tool or some particular paint or anything. All right. Just gonna keep making that sort of deep chromatic color. I just want to give myself enough time to demonstrate the knot. So painting a rock is the same as painting bark, is the same as painting a wave. Everything is essentially the same. I know I say I don't paint cars, but it's because mentally I get a break when I'm doing cars, and then I would hate to think I'd have to explain to anyone what I was thinking. While doing it. It would just be awkward. I'm pulling a little more ultramarine blue into my mix here. You'll notice I'm not using any glazing medium today because I'm not that concerned about it.
Okay.
And I'm going to work the center here, and the first thing that I'm going to do is be painting the center. Now on bark, one of the things that you're going to be balancing out when you're doing your textures, when you're painting what you're seeing, is that you need to make sure the paint is dry, which is another reason why I'm not hitting it with a lot of retarder or glazing medium, because it's going to be about layering these sort of structural dry layers on each other. And I'm going to pull out my burnt sienna.
I think your mic is smacking your pretty necklace.
Okay.
There it goes.
Okay. I'm going to pull out some of my burnt sienna. I might grab some of my Australian sienna. You could grab some of your yellow. I just want to pull it up. And even a smidge of red. I'm looking for this particular range. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to start kind of implying a knot here. I'm going to leave some of the paint showing through underneath. Right? Notice I'm using small little strokes. Right, here it is. And as I'm looking at that, I'm okay, but I'm thinking I want it to be drier, so I'm going to hit it with my hydro dryer and panic John because he's going to have to talk to y'all.
Nope, I got it. Hi, guys. Oh, clear my throat a little bit. So, it's nice to have you guys with us today. There's like over 200 people. Let me go look real quick. Oh, yeah, over 206 people here. We have 120 likes. Thank you guys for coming and hanging out with us. Now, I'm really hoping that I'm going to see a lot of barky trees coming up here in the next few days on our website. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and post up the pictures of all of your barky trees as you can.
Yeah, and play with it. This is just a play with the thing. Be real easy with yourselves. Realize that this is just about practicing expressing exactly what you're seeing. So I've got this nice little knot in the center here, right? And I might even come with some just of this Australian sienna. I might even pull a little white into it to create this sort of highlight. And just a couple places here in this knot, I'm going to add some of that. Adding some of this little highlight. If we get through this and we do good, I think my little rubbery thing is.
Oh, I'll come check it out.
Doing that crazy thing that sometimes happens. We're going to do a whole bunch of trees. There's like some famous trees I like to paint. There's like a 120-year-old maple in Japan, and there's Methuselah, which is the oldest living non-colonial tree. Cloney tree. I can't remember the word. Oh, I'm having a Simpson moment there. All right. So I've got this mix from earlier, my chromatic black, but I've taken it more to the blue. And I'm, interestingly enough, going to add a little white to it. And let's pull a little burnt sienna into it. I want it to be a slightly ashy color. Because where this tree is weathered and the bark is rippled up, it's very, very, very ashy.
Oh.
So I'm going to be, with this very stiff brush, dry and very lightly around my little knot here. I'm going to start implying that the bark is happening around here. What's funny?
Michelle, Michael Ann, and I always go for Michelle, but it's Michael, asked, should a new SS brush crack after being in water for 6 hours?
Yeah, it might. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Leaving brushes in water is it's a hand grenade lottery.
Yeah. Sometimes they won't, and sometimes they will. Even a ruby satin silver, if you leave it in water, you can pop. They really. There's wood inside that's coated with paint and epoxy, and so generally they're designed to not take on too much water. But again, if you leave them soaking overnight, they can swell and pop. Now you'll notice that some of Cinnamon's are popped. I think the one that she's using is a... Yeah, this is a Simply Simmons number 6, and it's been swollen several times.
Yeah, and when they dry out, they tend to swell back down, and they're okay. And generally, they continue to work for a while. It's just, be aware. And that's one of the things that we really, we've talked to a lot of brush manufacturers about that.
Yeah.
So these are things that, you know, when we're talking about brushes, you just have to be aware that you know, there's functionality to it. They're wood inside.
So I'm taking the Dog's Eating Purple and the Burnt Sienna. Sorry, babe. I just had to
No, go ahead.
tell people what I'm doing. Otherwise, I'll be like, what? I'm grabbing some ultramarine.
No, I'm just
And I'm making another deep, deep color. And I'm going to come here and add some shadow between these areas around the knot. Like, I'm paying attention in my photograph to where my light source is and where my shadow is cast, because that's what causes the shape and form of everything.
Yeah. But in general, you shouldn't leave your brushes soaking overnight.
It really damages them.
Yeah.
Which is why I like Simply Simmons, because they're $3. So if I break one, which I break a lot of brushes, I'm not upset and angry and crying.
Yeah. But leaving them soaking overnight is a recipe for trouble. So it's good to clean them, put them out. Now, that being said, they're all the time left in this studio. They get left all the time.
Yeah.
So when we recommend brushes, it's generally because we put them through the paces.
And you can still write the company, though. And they may, you never know. The Robert Simmons are guaranteed for life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they have a disclaimer, though, on that for soaking.
Yeah, you're really not supposed to leave them soaking.
Yeah. But we all do it and don't feel bad about it. That's why sometimes I'm like, a good brush that's inexpensive over a great brush, because I will damage
Now,
a good brush. I'm going to pull out some burnt umber.
Yeah, tell me about what you're doing there, because I've been talking about the brushes here.
I know. I don't even know anymore. So I'm coming back and trying to add some brown. I'm trying to add some shadow.
Is that burnt umber?
That is burnt umber.
Okay.
That is burnt umber, and I'm trying to add some back in. I'm trying to come back and add these little variant layers. We're trying to show that the bark and the shape of it on our tree.
Now you're going in a lot of radiating patterns.
Because around a knot, the bark will always radiate out.
And just sort of make those roundish circles.
Yeah, it's gonna. Pull some more blue in here, just a slightly different value, and then I'm gonna come back with a little more white. Create this high highlight. And then a couple places, just on the corner of the brush, I'm going to add this very dry highlight.
So would you say we're in our under painting phase?
No, we are still in we're in our painting.
We're getting in our painting there?
Yeah, we're starting to get our painting. We're refining. And,
I see.
And this will always be about refining. When you're really, really painting what you've got, you will be always, always refining. So I'm looking in my picture for highlights. Looking in my picture for highlights. Looking for that. Just looking for it. And keep adding white into this grade mix, because the weathered bark on the picture I have, and you'll notice for a lot of the trees, will have a gray blue tone to it. And so that's what you're trying to refine, is that gray blue tone. I can even add a little bit right there in that knot.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and then what's interesting is I'm going to get out a little of this
now, what size
green here.
What size canvas are you playing with there today?
I think today I'm just on
11 by 16 or 11?
No, it might. I'm not sure. I'd have to measure. Let me measure.
I think it looks like, you know.
It's like a 9 by 11.
Yeah, we'll pull it out before we leave here. Leave it.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have the thing on it, so I just have to tell you.
Oh, you have a measure.
So this looks to be almost, not quite 11, which is weird, by 14.
Yeah, 11 by 14.
That's disturbing. that it was not more. I'm gonna pull out some burnt sienna and try. And I've got that in my green mix in there too. I'm just gonna add some more of this little, trying to pull in. I've got a little green on my brush and a little burnt sienna on my brush, and I'm gonna be coming back in these areas and pulling up some of this bark. Painting bark, painting trees as they are, is like painting rainbows. I love painting rocks in like riverbeds for the same reason. It's about coming through and just really, really getting in your color palette.
Now, we're going to do several types of bark today.
Yeah, we're going to... I think the only way to really get this through for everybody is to do several types, talk about how we're making these decisions as we go. So see, I'm sort of painting out that purple now, but it's under there creating that depth. And this is just getting more wood-like and more wood-like as we go.
Well, Dominique showed up a little late, but at least
Hi, Dominique. Did she bring donuts?
She did. She brought donuts.
Now, Saturday is going to be big goofy. Today, we're like kind of in class, and I know that. But Saturday is going to be a big goof fest.
Yeah.
We're going to be goofy Saturday. Today, we're kind of covering some concepts and some ideas here. Now, I'm going to add a little moss to my tree. So I'm going to pull out a little of my phthalo and my Australian sienna. That's pretty bright. So I might grab a little of my burnt. Yeah, there we go. And I'm going to add some moss. Because trees often have, that's too bright. I'm going to get some of my hookers in there. You want it to be green, and it's a brighter green than you think, but you don't want it to be like new mown grass.
Right.
Needs to be grayed out, and I'm dabbing it around because moss grows like in little spurts and little areas, but it doesn't grow like everywhere.
Well,
it finds little bits of cool and wet.
Well, right, it grows on one side of the tree. It grows on the.
Well, not necessarily actually when you look at it.
Well, if you go into the woods and like look at a tree, and then like the sun, it generally grows on the opposite side of the sun, because moss doesn't like to get
But in some forests, like if you look at what Negrolero is doing, or some of these artists, they'll run into trees where the moss, if you're painting it, you look at it, it would be like around the tree because the forest is very dark and it's very wet, and so for the purposes of this,
I see what
not
you're saying,
important about where the sun is at. It's only important what you're looking at.
True.
So.
Sorry, the Boy Scout in me was like, wait a minute. If you're lost in the woods, you would need to wait.
Very important information. But at this knot hole, we're not worried about that. What's happened is enough moisture has happened here and enough shade, either from another tree or, just whatever conditions has happened, and some moss is starting to grow.
You're not using this tree to navigate out of the woods.
No, we're just out of our painting. So you can see that as we go. That's sort of interesting, this little bit of moss that we have. I'm going to get a slightly higher highlight of it, but you can see it's still quite grayed out. If you don't have and can't get the hooker's green, one thing that you could do is you could take a little phthalo blue or whatever blue you have, and maybe even a little yellow ochre or your cad yellow, and then gray it out with a titch of red.
Mm-hmm.
And it will still give you a nice grayed green. So don't worry about like you've got to get a particular tube of paint or stuff. There's always a way. Remember, if we do those color charts, we can always mix the color.
Yeah.
And we're never going to be sorry that we have all of the color values represented here. Ever, ever, ever. Ever, ever, ever are we going to be sorry that happened.
Kelly says that the local shop next to her in Jacksonboro, Tennessee has buttermilk donuts.
Oh my gosh, come here to the house. Let's give you the address. Announce it right online. Show up with those. Healthy life choices are wearing the Sherpa down.
Now see, I want to combine buttermilk donut with waffle maker. With a waffle machine.
Now I'm going to do an interesting thing. Around the hole here, I'm going to add even a little bit more moss.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the picture, it has this around it. So you could see if you were painting a tree on a given day, I'm going to switch to a smaller brush to add some shadows.
Mm-hmm.
If you were, on any given day, if you were painting a tree and you were really painting it, you realize it's not a fast, quick process.
No.
It's a slow, considered process. And I think a lot of times when we're painting, our expectations mess with our ability to execute. So we think, we do a lot of paintings in about an hour, but sometimes a painting takes a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
And you could see where doing something like this could take us a little bit longer.
It could take a little bit.
It could. It could take a little bit longer. That's okay, though.
Ooh, Ian says that in Tesco, UK, they have a vinegar donut, which sounds very English.
It does, man. I'm sorry. Y'all lost me with the spotted dick.
Yeah.
You really did. I was hopeful, because I'm hopeful about every dessert.
But yeah.
Vicky brought a bunch of that for all of us to eat. She only got the Brazilian guy to do any, though.
Yeah.
I already knew. I was like, no, I'm opting out. Thank you. I knew. I knew not to be tricked by English people with pastries.
Michelle was like, 2 words, Disneyland churro. And I was like, you just got to come to Houston, man. They have local churros or just like any of the good local shops.
So I'm just really trying to define the roll around the knot here. And you can see it's starting to become defined and thought about. And, it's really taking on its...
Now, where did you find your reference photos?
I actually, which is why we're not showing them, grab them from a variety of sources online.
Just various trees that you needed to have point reference for?
Yeah. And it's okay to do that. Look, so if you're trying to learn how to paint a technique and you find a photo online and you're just practicing the technique and you're not going to be blasting social media with your picture and you're going to, be just practicing your process, it's okay to paint it.
Yeah.
It is. It's hard to paint what you're not looking at. It's hard to paint what you can't see. Now, coming on this side of the bark, like if we were painting around this part of the tree, we were to add, around a knot, a tree will do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to say, pull away from that space, I'll pull a little more cad red into my ultramarine. Making my slightly chromatic black, not totally chromatic. I can pull some burnt sienna into it and maybe a little dioxazine, just deepening the pigment. And I'll come right here and say we were continuing some of this tree out, right, past when the knot is.
So I guess it's someone was just asking, we're on episode 26. Are we halfway through the year?
You know what? I feel like I don't know we're going to have 52 total by the end of the year. But then I also think, even past us going and sharing our pairs again, probably there's more questing.
Yeah.
When I started this, I was like,
maybe
is there a
season 2.
year's worth of stuff? And then after a few quests, when I realized I've got to break this down into, smaller bites, I realized the quest could be like the trilogy. It could be like Lord of the Rings. You may just be getting your party together to go recover that thing.
So
this might be book 1.
Yeah, you thought that this was just like a 3-hour tour.
Guys, all I can say is I'm willing to share the information with you to anybody who wants. It's 5 people come in. I'll share it with the 5 people come in. I'm willing to share it. Hopefully it helps, but yeah. That's why I'm do the quests that are important to you. If you've been really struggling with bark, this quest is worth you investing your time into to kind of do. But if you're I'm over it, not as much. All right, so I'm pulling that white into there and maybe a little more burnt. I may need to dry it so I get a nice dry brush response. Like I do.
So while she's doing that, you guys don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. We really appreciate it when you come out and hang out with us. Hitting that like button is a really easy way to let YouTube know that you like what you saw and you liked hanging out with us, and that we should be doing more of those. So, and if you have any friends that are not subscribed, definitely share this with them and let them know to come join us, because we like having more people to hang out with. And there's a happy birthday.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday, Hector. And to all of the other Sherpettes out there who are hanging out with us today.
So as I'm coming out, I'm going to be dry brushing sort of chunks of this lighter gray color that I've got. I think it needs a little more blue.
Alrighty.
I feel that. And you may be doing that too when you're painting it. Like, I feel like it needs a little more blue. Put a little more white into it. Because we've got to kind of create these little chunks. When the knot has impacted the bark, which do you remember? Okay, Boy Scout.
Huh?
What causes a knot in a tree? I don't remember.
A knot?
Yeah.
That's where a branch grows.
So that's where it grew and broke off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Generally speaking, sometimes a false branch can start growing there, but effectively it's a branch place.
The most interesting trees have them. As in the regular vertical part of the tree, there's like these sort of Lego bits of bark that the tree will have like cracks and fissures, and then there's like it pulls open, and then the outer bark is there. And then if it has had a fire, anything interesting, then that impacts it. And so a lot of times these will be impacted by around these knots and then start to radiate out vertical around the trunk.
Mm-hmm.
And it's being observant of that. I know I'm using that word a lot today. Observant. And I remember when my art teacher would be like, be observant. Right? Which when you have ADHD or ADD is not as fun of an instruction. But what they mean is just sort of allow yourself to take in the information and see if you can see what's happening. Because your brain actually wants to do that. There's a huge amount of your brain is processed for pattern recognition. And that's why people can paint. And that's why people in general can paint. So see how I pulled out this bark here?
Mm-hmm.
And that almost enforces the story of the tree that's right there. Of that knot.
Oh, yeah.
Because now the bark's there. I feel the bark. And you can just grab a little of your burnt umber here. And I'm going to come through and between these bits, add that burnt umber. I like painting trees, like just painting trees, because there's so much happening. They're not really just, the stick that I then highlight.
Right.
But we do a lot of that, and that's okay. But when you're really painting them, there's a lot of this. And I think some of my very favorite paintings are like a big, giant canvas of a macro picture of bark. Because they're like an abstract, but then they feel like something natural. And I think that that's super beautiful.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. I'm adding that brown, and then I'm going to come in and get a little of this burnt. I might add my Australian sienna. You could tone it with your, cad yellow. I'm going to put some of that there. Just dash that around. Notice I'm not heavy with any of this.
Mm-hmm.
See how this is very light? And I'll look at the picture, and I'll get some visual information, and then I come back and I add what I can remember. I don't know if I ever talk about that process, but I get my paint, I look at my picture, I get my visual information, and add what I saw or feel I saw. The process of painting realism is a very drilled down version of that, where you go in small bits, where you look, paint, look, paint, look, paint, look, paint. You're not getting broad impressionistic information about what you're looking at when you're painting something highly realistic. You are taking it down to these micro bits and really referencing often. We may talk about how to do hyperrealism sometime if we ever feel like, if you guys are patient and feel like drilling down, we could do that sometime. If you wanted. I'm going to put this color back into this mix over here. Do this a lot too. You'll see me doing this. I don't rinse my brush and I bring what I have back over to what I had before. This creates a unification in a painting that's really helpful. And I'm mixing quite a light color here. Maybe I just want a little more blue in it. Because the reference photo I have has a tremendous amount of blue in the bark. And when you're really new to painting, that can be super hard to see. But when you're doing it all the time, you'll be like, I see purple. You'll start to take in more through your eye. Remember how we did the eye test? That's not a static bit of information. That's ever changing, you know? And so I'm going to dash this highlight here around this. See that? That's going to create that feeling of this not being a flat surface. I'm ever taking my painting away from being a flat surface. Look at that. We're getting more and more barky by the second, aren't we? So this interesting stroke is me very lightly allowing the brush, see the tapping and the back and forth wiggle I have in my hand. How I'm doing that? And I'm just on the edge of that brush. That's what that is. Taking in that information that I gathered and putting it here. And what is it doing?
Oh, it's looking pretty good.
It's looking pretty good. Bark, not really a fast biz. Bark is not fast biz. And it's not necessarily easy biz, and that's why on these kinds of things we call them clinics. Whenever, okay, so here's some keywords if you're like wondering what you're getting into on a Saturday, like on a Thursday. If I call it a clinic, get a cup of coffee. Anytime I use the word workshop means I'm going to hug you and we're going to talk a lot about how we're feeling. Clinic.
Yeah. Everybody likes the idea of hyperrealism.
Do we? That's a clinic.
Yeah.
That's not a workshop. Workshop is like, let's paint how we feel. The Saturday where we all do the abstract together is more in the workshop-y space. The realism is going to be... Actually, this is true like when you're out looking for classes to do in your local area. Check and see if it's called a workshop or a clinic. Because it'll really tell you where they're taking it. I'm pulling this like extreme highlight out on these bits and breaking up the flatness of the surface. See how that surface is not flat anymore? And it needs to not be flat. I'm going to wipe my brush but not rinse it because I want my pigments. I want my pigments. Now, still going, still going. I'm going to add some of this to some of my tree. Because this would happen, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If it's here, it's going to be here. If it's here, it's going to be a little bit here. And I'm telling you, you can just slow down and breathe. And this is the secret stuff that just drops your blood pressure.
Yeah.
Once you accept that it's just going to be a process and you're going to be here with your painting a minute. I'm not putting it everywhere. I'm just saying, hey, I got some moldy molds. All right. See? Bark. Bark, bark, bark,
That's
bark, bark.
really cool.
I need a sippy sip.
All right.
I think I should have gotten a mimosa.
I don't think we have any mimosa right now.
Okay.
What's next?
So that is your basic, this is going to be the basic series of things that you'll be thinking about when you're talking about like oaks or, you know, that kind of tree that you're dealing with. But every tree has a very different character and quality. To give myself a little break before I start on my next character-driven tree, I was thinking we'd at least cover wood grain.
Yes. You want to go to wood grain?
Yeah, let's go over to wood grain. Thank you, John. All right, so I got some wood grain here. Now, my particular wood grain that I pulled out is very weathered and gray, and it doesn't have a lot of brown in it.
Now, before we go on to that, I'd like to can we do a quick shout out to everybody?
Yeah, we can totally. Let's all have like a minute because that was really we painted some bark. I really vacillated. Like, am I going to explain this? Am I going to drill down on this? Does anybody else want to drill down? We do a lot of talking even before we start painting. Will anyone ever see the bark? But at least I know you guys saw the bark. Now you know a little. I feel like you probably know a little bit more about bark than you did before. At least that.
Yeah. And
that's my hope. Did we?
Yeah. Okay. Everyone here is totally having a great time. There's a huge. I'm gonna throw on, just because I think that you need to
see the chat.
You need to see the chat. You need to wiggle a little bit. I think we can do that. We can let you say hello to everyone just for a second, because no one gets to see you so much. And it's good in a little break between this. You see everybody there?
Wow, that's bark awesome. That's fun. Aaron had a question above. What did Aaron have a question of? Aaron, it went by and I didn't
Aaron,
see it.
If you were painting, I've got it over here. If you were painting this as a whole canvas, would the bark segments get bigger?
If you were painting this as a whole canvas, so I don't want to give you a definitive answer because I want you to look at a photo, and mostly, yes, in trees, as you get away from the knot, the sections as you get into the bark of the whole tree will tend to be more substantial. However, you wouldn't want to move away from a reference photo because you'll miss subtlety that, my picture went away, subtlety that conveys what you're actually doing. If you guys actually Google search bark paintings, you'll see there's a whole movement of artists that like there's a grip of them that all paint just bark. The rainbow eucalyptus one being my favorite. I keep losing my connection. Even my truck is dancing. All right, mind, hungry. Thank you.
And everybody should be getting up and dancing just a little bit, because it's
we
good
need some
to wiggle your feet.
Fun. Yeah, it's just
wiggle your toes.
Hard to focus. It's hard for me to focus today.
And if you can't get up and wiggle your tushy,
hi D.
D knows.
2250 said hi. Vote for Swamp Yoda. It's so Sherpa. Michelle, that's funny. Dance. Yeah, we got dance.
We got over 200 people here, and they're all liking, commenting, and subscribing with us. So
wait, it's important to dance because you get so into it. And not driving now, so I could chat. 18 wheels dancing right now, not driving. Oh, good. Don't drive and chat. No. My son is dancing with you, Stephanie. Hi. Let's dance. Can't dance, I'm driving, just left Michael's. No dancing if you're driving. Put questions in caps so we can see it. Yes, that's so true. Do a swamp yoga painting, please.
Ooh.
Well, we're getting through the quests so we can. And then if we do some trees, if we get certain trees out of the way, then I'll feel like I could throw some swamp yoga. Yoda. Not yoga. Yoda.
How about some swamp yoga?
Huh? Join us on the bark side of the force. Ian? That's funny.
Oh, that's
super funny.
He was up here earlier.
Hi, Liam.
It's
Liam
funny.
likes to dance with us, too.
Ian thought that he was going to...
Nene dancing self-warm. Go, Nene. Go, Nene. It's your birthday. Go, Nene. Go, Nene. Oh, no. She did say yoga.
I know. I'm
swamp
just teasing
yoga?
You. Yeah, swamp yoga.
What is swamp yoga?
I don't know. Yoda did it.
I'm looking it up
he
now.
He was like the yoga master.
But if it's swamp yoga, I am confused. You'll have to track that down. All right, I'm going to show you some wood grain stuff that we can do.
Are you?
I'm going to make one of my gray colors. I'm going to take my burnt, and I'm using my my awesome ultramarine. And you'll notice I'm not actually working my phthalo. And here I'm going to show you why in a minute I'm leaning towards the ultramarine over the phthalo.
Yeah.
If you're wondering how I'm making that decisions. Because I'm looking for something that grays out softer and isn't as bright. Now I've got this base gray. I might put a little bit of white into my mix, but not over the whole brush.
Okay, where are you going?
And I'm going to go up and down. I'm going to maybe need some liquid glazing liquid for this first layer. So the
Okay.
first layer I need is to create some basic underpainting for my world to hang on. So I'm going to put my glazing here because I'm not getting enough flow with my paint is what has gone wrong for me here. So let's get a little more flow with the paint and maybe a little of that. There we go. We want streaks is what we're looking for.
Why do you want streaks?
Because this gives, wood is so many colors and patterns and things, and if you give it the underpainting of many tones, you're actually creating the first layer of illusion. Even if you do decorative wood painting, you're going to need to have a slightly streaked underpainting. So see how it's not a uniform
I do.
anything. Don't let it get uniform on
I
you.
do see it.
Don't let it do it. I've got a number 12 bright, which is different than a flat, right?
Uh-huh.
Because a flat's bristles are longer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I were doing this with a flat, the bristles would be so long that I wouldn't get enough resistance to really accomplish my goal.
Gotcha.
So just make sure that, see, that's not streaky enough. So I gotta go back and streak it up.
So how do you get more streaky?
I come here and you'll notice I got some of the brush in the white.
Okay, yeah.
It's almost like, well, you could even get a little blue here if you wanted. I'm just making sure that I haven't incorporated the pigment through the brush.
Oh, so you haven't mixed it up. You've made sure it's got lots of...
Yeah. See, now we're a little more streaky.
More streaky.
More streaky.
So I guess if you didn't want it to be streaky, you could mix it all up evenly on the palette first.
If you were like, no streaks, I deny these streaks. I'm going to even come back with a little bit of my brown.
And that's that long-handled brush there, whacking your mic.
Yeah. No, actually, I think what it is the tape loosened. No, I do.
It may have. We'll go in there and get some more
I'm
tape
pulling
on
a
there.
little of my ultramarine. Now, just to show you what this mix looks like if it's in the phthalo, if I take my burnt over to my phthalo, it tends to go more green for me. See that? Than gray.
Gotcha.
I'll put that right here. See how different that is?
Mm-hmm.
It's very green, isn't it? And the wood I'm looking at is very gray, so this here wouldn't, it would feel like it was like this weird green. It would take it to a weird direction, and it just wouldn't feel right. I'm going to dry this a little bit so I can work my next layer.
All right, you try that. And hi, guys. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us today. It's so nice to see all of you with us. And wow, we have over 200 people here and over 200 likes. Thank you so much. And for those of you who'd like to know, we do lives Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. And we try to mix it up with other stuff throughout the week, maybe on Facebook or Periscope. And you'll see us kind of playing around out there too. Please, please, please post up your pictures. Any of the cool trees and naughty stuff you do, post up there. Love to see those pictures, and you'll see we go out there, and I'm always out there cruising Facebook, seeing that stuff. So thank you for coming and hanging out. And hi, Gail, and to your son, Jason, who's here hanging out with us today.
Hi, Gail and Jason.
To everybody else who's saying hi to me. Hi, guys. Nice to see you and hang out and, do our thing.
So in wood grain, it's nice to pick either your highlight or your low light to start working in your patterns. And this is going to be another one of the things. Yes, we could use a wood grainer, and it does this in about 2 seconds. It's super fun. And we may do that on one of our 1-hour paintings. But for this, I just want to show you how, like, if I was looking at wood grain and I was trying to figure things out, what I would do. So you can either work with your darkest value or your lightest value to start telling your story.
Uh-huh.
And it's whatever you're seeing the clearest is honestly my recommendation. If you're having an easier time seeing the shadows, start with the shadows. If you're having an easier time seeing the highlights, start with the highlights. Because really, you've got to get yourself through the first kind of layout. You'll be refining a bunch of times. A bunch of times you will refine and think things out. And You
So-
know, so don't worry too much. You're just trying to give yourself a chance to lay it in.
Now, if you were going to be a tree,
If I was going to be a tree,
what kind of tree would you be?
well, I would like to be Methuselah. I'm sorry, this keeps happening. Can't get it to stop. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, that's what happened. It's like, surely it's you not using the mic right, but this is the mic. I think what it is I ripped the tape off the mic or something through the process of taking this on and off. This was like the number one thing they wanted us to change at Next Up was our mic.
They didn't like our mic.
No, they didn't. They wanted me and Tracy Campoli, who does fitness, to switch mics because she had a lav mic, and they wanted me to have her lav and her to have my headset. Like,
All right,
switch them.
So while we're doing this, I'm gonna.
Yeah. What I was doing earlier was mixing my dark color because I've decided to go in with my darkest values.
Okay.
And start putting in my patterns and my knots, and then come back with my lightest values. A lot of times I like to work darkest to light in my acrylic painting. So I find my darkest values and start blocking my underpainting in, and then build up highlights, build up highlights, build up highlights.
You show them that just for a little bit on the I'll be on the close-up
Okay.
camera, and then I'm gonna come fix your mic.
So I'm getting my visual information in my brain about where I'm going to focus my attention.
And you're losing your mic now. She's being awfully quiet because I'm miking her. She's doing a great job. So give me just 2 more seconds. I'm going to move this little piece of tape over while she's touching that up, and then we'll be ready to go. You guys are really patient for hanging out with us. I appreciate that while I'm making these little adjustments. Thank you guys so much. We'll be right back. Sorry, guys. I think we're back. Are you back?
Okay, I don't know.
You're back.
I'm back.
We
All right, so what I'm doing is I'm putting in the wood grain pattern with
So
my darkest
sorry.
value, which is the burnt sienna and the ultramarine. This is just one, I mean, there's like a bazillion color mixes of how you can get stuff going. This is just one of my favorites. So I don't know if you've ever looked at wood grain. Have you ever been somewhere that was like really, really mind-numbingly boring and all you had was wood grain to look at and you were finding all the faces in the grain? That could just be a thing that I do, but I suspect I couldn't be possibly alone. So it's really about just painting what you see and following those little lines. Oftentimes these lines will ripple out like waves, but you've got to watch everywhere there's a knot or an imperfection in the wood. It can change the direction of what's happening in the wood. And this may just be an affirming thing for you. We're like, no, I'm going to go get that wood grainer thing that she mentioned. This looks like a lot of work, and I don't feel like doing it. And it is. When you're painting a real wood grain and you want it to look like a wood grain, right, it can be a lot of work. There's some one-stroke techniques for it, right? And there's some good videos online. But if you just want to get it out of that space of being, there's decorative painting, and then there's, where you're painting.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're just trying to get into that space where you're painting, then you may have to practice some of these techniques. One not being more right than the other at all. So, I really, really hate that in art when someone acts like it's like one is better than the other, because that's crazy to me.
Now, can I ask a question about scale here?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of confusion on whether or not you would, on a normal painting, ever draw stuff this big. Are you doing this to illustrate technique, or would
I'm doing this to illustrate technique? Though again, if you search wood painting, like wood paintings, like wood grain painting or bark paintings, you're going to see there's a bunch of artists that looked at bark and said, "No, my whole painting is about this." And it's really exciting stuff. It's really interesting, exciting stuff. In general, if you're trying to understand a technique more deeply, sometimes blowing it up macro and just focusing on that. I know I have mentioned Stephanie B, Deliberately Creative. A bunch of times she does the doodle gems.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you're trying to understand how to do those gemstones, going in and focusing on those in a macro sense where they're blown up, where you're just focusing on what makes them look like a gemstone, and doing that will allow you, even when you're painting them small, to paint them better.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you pull it out and you're like, all right, let me look at what makes this, and you get into it and you really study it, right? Mm-hmm. This is like, practicing a bit of music over and over and over and over again, like a passage, right? It sort of helps you understand how those things are put together.
Okay.
Where you focus on one particular part of it. So maybe that's wrong. I'm not really musical. I probably shouldn't make musical analogies.
As long as you feel good.
I feel good. But sometimes it's nice to pull an object out and go, what makes this look like this? So when you're trying to do that. Now notice how I'm letting my line get thicker and thinner. I'm really, really doing that. Come around my knot here.
So, Lauren,
like this. See how that just takes on this wood grain feel?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually really pleasant and easy to do wood grain.
No.
Whether you're getting a grainer out and you're using your grainer to paint it, or you are just painting it.
Now, Lauren was very sick today, and she had to stay home from school. And because she loves watching you. And I know she didn't stay home just to watch you and come see us live. I'm sure that she didn't do that, because that would be neglecting.
That would be just like me.
That would be neglecting your and skipping, and that would be doing like what we did in high school.
We of course do not support that, and
no.
I did not do that kind of stuff a bunch as a kid myself.
But you should go to class. Remember, we have this on demand, and you can catch us up later.
That's true. But if you are just genuinely sick home, you are probably learning a lot about art right now.
This is a worthwhile place to come hang out. I mean,
it's not the History Channel, but it'll help you.
Yeah.
So, and it's just, there we go. So see how we have some nice kind of the shadow of the wood grain? It starts to feel like that.
Gail put off her dentist appointment to watch.
Dude, so with you.
Yeah, almost anything to get out of a dentist appointment.
I have a hard time with dentists. I've got to go get a bunch of stuff done, and I don't want to get a bunch of stuff done. And I even get trolling comments about it, and I still don't get it done. I'll tell you right now, if you were ever in a car accident, see the dentist before you see your chiropractor.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently, if you smash your face into the dashboard, it can mess you up.
So if you're going to be doing these,
That not recently. That has happened in the past. That has messed up my mouth, and now I'm having to repair a bunch
you
of
have
stuff.
a great mouth.
What?
I love your mouth. You have
I
a
love,
pretty
I,
good-
I love my mouth too. I'm very grateful to my teeth. I'm not saying nothing. I'm just saying, Dad, it's really scary. I have reason to go, not going.
So the
I'm just sharing too much information. John's like, oh no.
you're fine. I mean, it's like everybody here's just hanging out too. They're all saying that they all hate dentists too.
I don't hate them. I love dentists. I think
mean,
they're beautiful people who
they-
are good doctors who take care of us, and I don't want any dentist to ever feel bad about what they do.
They dread the experience of having to go in and potentially have painful things done. But
That's
we
all
all
it is.
love our good dentists.
Love, love, love.
Yes.
I just always feel bad when dentists. So
Okay.
I've got a lighter color here, and I notice I'm changing the brush direction of my brush,
Uh-huh.
and I'm pulling it down now, trying to create kind of a scratchier, and it's a very dry brush
Hmm.
with this highlight. See how I'm doing this? And the paint underneath is helping me, and it being multicolored does actually help me.
Why
Sometimes
is
you
that?
guys are like, oh man, you painted over it. What was that all that work for? Because paint shows through other paint.
Okay. Now, if you were going to be doing this on a different scale or something, would you just shrink these down to fit the size of whatever you're
Yeah.
doing? Okay.
Yeah. And you may take some of the detail out. The bigger it is, the more detail you would be including if you're painting things objectively, not abstractly. If you're painting something objectively and you're making it bigger, you're going to have to include more detail. If you're painting it abstractly, you might actually get it down to its value and its shapes and stuff like that. Like if you're doing like a big, massive, friend of mine, Daniel Elliott, does these spectacular abstract landscapes, and they're massive. No, they're not particularly detailed. But if you were to be like, if Lockery were to take her stuff, the bigger she takes her stuff, obviously the more detail she's putting into the piece to be within her workspace. And it's just really about what you're doing. I know my mom, like when she goes bigger, there's more going on, the bigger the painting goes.
Gotcha.
Me too, as well, because I tend to paint a little more objectively. But again, for the purposes of understanding what you would be doing big or small, there is nothing as helpful as just blowing it up and really kind of looking at it and going, what's important here? Because it'll help you decide when you're really new to art and you're trying to decide what do I say or what I don't say. I'm going to add a little highlight here. You know? So that's what you're trying to learn is what do I say, what do I not say? Look at that. Isn't that just getting more wood grainy? Looks
Crazy.
like old, weathered wood. So, like, say you were painting a vase of flowers in front of old weathered wood, and it was a 4860, and you had a vase of flowers against wood, which could be very beautiful. You would need to paint the wood at least at this level,
Gotcha.
or you wouldn't be able to get the painting across. And also, you might not, on something that big, want to use a wood grainer.
Huh.
Because the wood grainer, if you're very, very adept at it, I've seen people be really adept at it, they can break up its tendency to repeat a pattern,
Yeah.
right? And which is its tell. You know how in poker things have tells?
Mm-hmm.
In art, things will have tells, so I'll look at paint and I'm like, oh, they used a wood grainer? Is because a natural pattern repeat will start to occur,
Ah.
which you can avoid if you do things by hand.
So I got a couple of good questions out here.
I'm so happy to answer good questions. I like these really crazy drill down quests because I'm just like, it clears it up.
So the first question is someone was asking, where do I find the gem artist Stephanie something?
I hope somebody has. She's at work right now, so I don't know if she'll be in camp. If her husband Mark is here, he'll throw up her link, or somebody will have her link. Somebody put up a link, or you can search Doodle Gem Deliberately Creative, and it should pull up her videos.
Stephanie Bergenson.
Bergeron.
I always say it wrong. I'm
I'm
horrible.
probably saying it wrong too, and she's just so nice. She didn't want to even tell us at VidCon.
Yeah.
She's probably like, oh my goodness, these people. But she's very sweet, and she has a very calming, delightful voice. She's actually quite pleasant to listen to. I don't know if I am, but I know Stephanie.
Now everybody loves hanging out with us and listening.
I really enjoy Stephanie. And can you see how this wood is starting
Yeah.
to
We
take
totally
shape?
see it. Now, let's see here. There's some questions about, would you teach some snow splatter techniques and raindrop techniques?
Yeah.
Maybe this as we get into this winter.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, I want to teach some water, like how you do a water droplet, how because I think some things are mentally confusing. Like if it's see-through, how do you paint something see-through?
Mm-hmm.
That really messes with people. By the way, it's one of the things they do to you in art school. No matter where you go in the world, they're going to put out a bunch of glass and fill it with water and say, paint this.
Ah.
A bunch of clear glass, well lit, filled with water. Like a row of them, and they'll give you a big canvas and they'll like work it out. You're like, this is awesome. And right now, Janine's like, wait, what? That's in my future somewhere along the way. Somebody's going to pile up bones for you. Somebody's going to pile up rags for you. Somebody's going to pile up glass for you. You're going to just be sitting in there going, I didn't bring enough of a snack for this. There's always that one person that like flips out in the middle of the project and goes running out. Why is that funny to me?
I don't know.
I think because it always happens. I think in our classroom it was the super couple, Taifik.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what their actual individual names were because they only came as a super couple. And this was before there were super couples.
Mm-hmm.
They did this before that was a thing. Like, I honestly think they started that trend. But they would have, like, emotional moments and exit the art studio. Together, though. Like a school of fish. All right.
Oh, thank you, Flame. She got the link up there for Stephanie.
Oh, thank you. So, see how that's like wood grain?
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. I think we've been here a really long time. I'm a little worn out.
Are you? Yeah, we've covered a lot today.
We covered a lot, and I'm not saying we don't have more to cover here because we do. But now that I've kind of got this idea to you, I feel like I could throw some more challenging trees, maybe.
Yeah.
Direction.
And there was
like with some really like involved faces in some trees, like some like ancient tree beings with these.
Would you consider maybe doing some what do you call it? Like some different kinds of like birch bark and stuff like that.
Yeah. What I'm hoping is now we've kind of talked about how do we find these spaces that I can go do some like, I really like rainbow eucalyptus. I really like it when bark is peeling. Birch is super, like the birch one is kind of like an easy, birch and aspens are super easy, which is why they end up in our hour-long paintings as much as they do.
Peeling birch, they definitely would like to see some peeling birch.
Yeah, that's an event, but we'll do some peeling birch. It'll probably be on our lives, right? Like we'll do something, and then on our live we'll be like, now let's, you know what I mean? I like that we can hang out longer on the lives.
Yeah.
But I'm not like, impeding the people who need to be in and out. So I like that division that we're doing. Let's do a quick Q&A, just in case I missed some questions. Just anything like a fast Q&A, and I'll sit by water, and then we'll say, hey, a Yoda tree. All right, Jennifer.
A stump. I was just going to comment.
Peeling tree, birch tree at some point, yeah.
A stump would be good, yeah.
Gum tree, says Janine. I'll look up what that is. I would have thought I had a rainbow eucalyptus, but apparently there's a gum tree.
Oh, and look, Christy said...
Madrone. Oh, yeah, rainbow eucalyptus. I did have her. No indoor-based trees. No, but I really, really sometime want to do the elk crease. And somebody said, hi, Ethel, and I agree with that.
Christy says, you're way better than art school.
I am? Thank you.
And can we do an owl?
Do you know, I totally know what you feel. I had a serious art professor that had her paint on baby jars because she couldn't go back and mix a color. And she did masters.
It's hard.
She would like scrape it up with her palette knife and get right in her baby jar. And she's like, you can save this because you never know if you're going to need it again. It's like, wasn't that what color theory was for?
Well, it's hard to learn to mix paint. I mean,
send suggestions and questions there, Sherpa. Oh, I like that. She's so on that. Can you please explain it all again? Because I missed it. Ethel. Oh.
Ethel, yeah. Donuts.
Donna, thank you. She says, I'm a way better teacher. I really appreciate that. River birches are nice peelers. I agree they are. It's a really fun search. On your quest, like if we talk about doing Google searches, search bark. Just search bark images and be like, there's so much bark. I said to John's like, how long are we going to be here? I'm like, John, there's a lot of bark. I think we're going to cover some kind of bark thoughts and some wood grain thoughts because there's like, I could cover so much bark, but now we can paint trees. Did you learn to paint from your mom? Lindsay Fitzgerald. So here's what it is. For years, I was like, man, my mom did not give me art lessons. What's going on, right? Like, I can remember every time she and I sat together to paint. And then I had my own child, and I kind of realized what happened, because my daughter doesn't want me to show her anything. And I realized probably I knew everything when my mom was showing me. But what my mom did do is she made sure I had every single art supply on the planet, and she drug me with her to every workshop, which probably means she had to pay an adult price for a seat for me. So I was at all the Watercolor Society workshops, and I was sitting there with all these amazing artists. And so she made sure I knew the stuff, even though probably I was not listening to her. Lots of paint mixing for bark. How do you mix paint and manage to keep your brush so clean? Jody, what I do often, if you notice, is I wipe on the towel. A lot of times in the drill down lessons, I even try to say, hey, I'm wiping on my towel now, and I'm trying to mention how often I'm cleaning or removing paint from the brush. Beautiful fall leaves to go with trees. Yeah, and dappled light. I think we need to work on dappled light. I love redwood trees. Ruth is like, redwood trees are awesome. Penny Turner, a rotten tree stump with peeling bark and moss and mushrooms growing on it is the most fun to paint, and a good suggestion, Penny. Yes, there is a plastic spatula. It's called a wood grainer, the D, and it does this real easy. Yeah, somebody just Googled river birch bark, and they're like, whoa. Helen would like a Sherpa hoodie. And then, is there another Fitzgerald in the house? Michelle's like, Fitzgerald's anywhere. What is a grainer? Amanda, a grainer is a rubber stamper. It's kind of curved. You can get it at Walmart. You get it anywhere. You can see a gazillion videos on how to use it, and it very quickly creates a wood grain effect. It is part of the trompe-l'oeil, muraling, and decorative painting movement. And the only thing I want to say to that is sometimes between art movements you'll catch some shade, but this is my opinion. I've been here a long time. I've seen people that can do stuff with a wood grainer that I would be struggling to do with the brush. Everything is about the artist. It's not about the tool. The Real Mithril would like some old witches. Fire, please. Marilyn, if you're struggling with fire, we have two videos. One is the campfire at Arcadia, and one is the dragon, and we cover that. And we'll still do quest on fire.
Now, we're not going to do a quest on fire, but we will do a quest about fire.
Oh, don't worry about it. Everybody here is helpful. I'm not biased towards them at all. I only use live on the edge of the Redwood National Forest. Not sure what the other colors for bark besides browns. Well, Jennifer, all the colors are actually implied, and rocks and trees have so much more color in them than you'd think. Some trees will tend to go to the red shades and the gold shades. Some trees will tend to be very purple and green. Rainbow eucalyptus, dude, those are like all the colors. It's actually so challenging to paint those because they're so colorful. People have trouble believing them. If you're in California art show circuit, you already know that all the people entering all those shows are always painting rainbow eucalyptus. Like Kimberly is, I'm sure, going, yeah, they're always there. Oh, Christy says she feels fortunate to be receiving all this info. Thank you, Christy. I appreciate that you guys come and listen.
We feel
Christina Weber would like to buy an apron.
So I'm gonna jump in there because on a couple things. One, we are working on sweatshirts. They're very expensive though, so we're trying to make sure we get some good ones. We have aprons that are working out right now. We're just making sure that we get them so that the fulfillment and all that's going to be working out right. We want to get some tests. So you guys know, Lisa has been working double time to try to help us make sure we get some really good aprons. She's really making sure that she's taken it on herself to help us out with that. So everyone thank Flame for that big help.
Yeah, seriously. And then I got one from Stormy and Lindsay. So Stormy asked, do I have a video on painting rocks and mountains? And Lindsay asked, welding request. Husband wants a tutorial of a welder silhouette with sparks behind it.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, but do you remember the TD Industries?
Oh,
How
I know.
am I feeling about welders these days?
I'll work on that. Yeah.
I got two funny answers for you. Today's the 100th year celebration of the national parks. Go see a park. A lot of them are free this weekend. Awesome. Share, Ruth. Thank you. All right. I have one mountain, which is Misty Mountain Meadow, where we start to talk about mountains and how you lay out a painting. Mountains are coming, actually, all through fall and winter. We're going to be doing a lot of landscapes. As for welders, I will try to come back to that. I got a commission in my youth, a big, massive one, which actually involved painting a lot of welders. I was really traumatized by it, but I'll try to come back to it. And I might consider sharing
We're gonna work
that.
together. We'll work. I think that sounds like a fun
zipper
project.
sweater.
A zipper
Please.
sweater, please. All right, we'll hear you. We'll.
You know, I would love an apron with the big ArtQuest logo on it. Pairs, please, 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 says Joanne.
That's that, Joanne. That's what we're working on next.
And Flame's talking about the Sherpa meetups that we're trying to start getting going, so you guys can start to meet each other and paint together and just be community in real life, IRL.
Oh, we have peg shows on Channel 15.
Christy
in
says the
Houston.
nicest thing. She says, my practice and skills have developed so rapidly since finding cinnamon in December. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Oh yeah.
That's really nice. I appreciate that. I totally appreciate Sherpa hat and apron.
Mm-hmm.
I might make some hats and put them on the store like some of these crazy art hats, but you guys got to realize that it is like set design. It's hot glue. I'm just really good with some wire cutters and a hot glue gun. So, Northwest meetup, anyone? I love that idea. Lindsay, my husband. So the Fitzgeralds are finding each other. I'm hanging to get shirts for the girls. Oh, yay. Thank you, the Room with Thrive. I've improved tons with cinnamon, too. I can... Wait,
Whoops, sorry.
chat went away. I guess John said I'm done reading it.
No, I just pushed a button because I was... where did it go? I don't know how to get that back. Okay, hold on. I have to go... Ooh, there you go.
Now I see a cursor.
There it goes.
May I share in the Angelini face group a lot? Many I share. Oh, I really appreciate you guys sharing in the Angelini face group. If you don't know, Angela Anderson and I have a Facebook group together. We started it for a collab that we did a while ago, and now we just keep collabing, and the group is sort of like our baby. And it's a place you guys can get together and talk, and everybody shares like what's happening in their studios, pictures of their studios, sales they're finding, projects that they're currently working on, and just general support and help to everyone in their art journey. And it's been a real pleasure being able to be involved in that and all. Yeah, my mom told the spy story. I told you it was a good one. I knew I gave you a good one. What's the water feature behind cinnamon, says Nicole 91NB. That's called a rain lamp, and those are vintage. They're like from the 1970s, and they actually use, well, now they use mineral oil.
Mm-hmm.
Put photos of your hats on aprons. You know? Crazy little turtle, yes, spy with the Vespa. I love that. My mom did she... Okay, so the next one is to ask her about how she got to Colorado from Arizona. That's the next thing. The next time you see Mom, the question you ask her is, Ginger, tell us about the story of when you left your university and went to Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Or the other good one is ask her about her horse, Cappy.
Oh,
I'm going to give you all the good juice of questions to ask Mom, so she'll go off on one of her fun tangents. And if you don't know who she is, she's Ginger Cook Live.
Yep. And we'll have a video about the lamp here soon too, won't we?
Oh, Michelle got to meet Stephanie and Mark, and they're very nice. That's the truest statement ever has been stated. Honestly, the truest statement that's ever been stated is that Stephanie and Mark are very nice people. I mean, seriously, I'm a good person, but sometimes even around Stephanie, her niceness is like being around a SpongeBob dream of niceness.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she's really nice. You just want to hug her. And just hug her and hug her and hug her and hug her. And yes, and her horse Cappy. Yes. Has she talked about her horse Cappy? Kim? Okay. Left to go to Colorado. Okay, Kim's just reminding everybody. Yeah. How did she tell her about the story about how she got to Colorado to be with my dad, and then also anything about her horse Cappy. If you can ever get her talking about Cappy, there are some crazy stories there. What's in the works for Halloween? So in the works for Halloween, we have some faced trees. We have some hauntings, which I'm pretty excited about. Of course, we have some Nightmare Before Christmas stuff. We do have some blacklight. More zombies are coming. I'm really inspired by a lot of the new trends and exciting things happening just in kind of spooky design. We're also probably just over fall going to be working just a lot of those, like, I'm going to try to make sure that I've got really cute and really spooky, because I think that those are fun to flip between, is the really cute of Halloween and the really creepy of Halloween, like grim. And I don't know how it's all going to be received, but creatively I'm just sort of having a blast with it. And also we're working on a wolf with a howl, and there's a crow coming.
Yeah.
There's a really cool crow coming. So hopefully you guys like crows, because I do, because, you know, the movie The Crow. It's a whole thing. So it's a problem I have. John, you're not the only one who can't pronounce names. I know I can't. I do my best. Please do a rain class, says Rebecca. Now, Rebecca, do you mean like raining like on the ground and you see light and reflection and it's just raining outside? Or do you mean like rain on a surface? What specifically in relationship to rain is my question to Rebecca. Does that do any of that? Oh, yeah, the crow. See, Jen's with me. Jen's like, yeah. Waiting to hear that voice collab John and me will do. What voice? Yeah.
Oh, no. I'll fill you in later.
Yeah. It's going to be good. I love crows. Cool. Yeah, we're doing some crows. And Rebecca's like all of the above. Anything more about rain? Yes, more water. I've actually got some designs coming on rain. Not anything actually you guys are expecting. Hopefully it's going to be a surprise, and hopefully it's emotional and kind of special to the heart, but not like too far. But hopefully it's like one of those poignant pieces. I'm working on poignant. And Jen's like, ASMR.
That's what we were talking about earlier.
Halloween is going to be great. Who doesn't like Halloween? It's such a fantastical, imaginative time. And I want to paint some scenes from AHS. I'm working on a drawing feature of a big creepy AHS? American Horror Story.
Oh.
Got it. Thank you. Which season? I honestly like Coven a lot. Fish. Yeah, there's a trout coming. You have a kitty purring in your ear, and I totally don't get ASMR.
So what we were talking about earlier.
If you get it, you get it. It's one of those things. Like, I may do an ASMR video. I don't expect it to be broadly viewed. We've done some meditation, but for the people that get it, they deeply get it. It's an interesting segment of YouTube. Not as interesting as eating weird things or popping pimples, which I really wish I'd never found.
Well, we were chatting
YouTube.
earlier. Yeah, we were chatting earlier, and Mona and I were saying that maybe we'll do some sort of ASMR thing together. So we'll see. Yeah, maybe fun.
I got to do some Jack and Sally stuff, because that's so romantic, and that's kind of John and I, and we kind of like it.
Yeah.
So cinnamon covered with scary Ewoks. I'm never going to paint anything that's scary. Yes, I'm still doing the coral reef. That's happening. Oh, you liked Freak Show. That's interesting. Because I was like so Coven, but I did see all of Freak Show. I do respect. I don't know, they lost me in Hotel, and that's crazy because I'm a big Gaga fan, but I just got lost in the middle of the season. Okay, so Wolves and Crows, and somebody watches the Pimple Poppers. It's just a scary, scary segment.
I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah, Coven, and the Angel of Death in season 2 is gorgeous. Yeah. Aesthetically, I think that American Horror Story is maybe one of the prettiest shows ever. I thought Penny Dreadful was really gorgeous. Anybody else just think Penny Dreadful just visually was amazing? I wish more stuff like that would come up. That I found Preacher to be really beautiful.
Since 4 Rooms,
Preacher was really beautiful visually. Did anyone else get blown away by how pretty that was?
See, none of these.
More Day of the Dead. There can never be enough Day of the Dead, Sadie. Never enough. But I haven't done cute. Oh, and I still have to do a Frida Kahlo. I hope some of you like Frida, because I have to get a Frida out. I have to, or I'm going to just die.
Yeah. 4 Rooms was.
Did we say something about Harry Potter? Yeah, Angela and I are doing we're doing a Harry Potter collab. We're doing the Mythical Beasts.
Yeah? Mythical Beasts.
I've been wanting to watch Penny D. It's just beautiful. I don't know, you're kind of with Penny Dreadful with the writing or not with the writing, but I mean, visually it's amazing. Any Japanese landscapes and buildings, of course. Was I hot when I was young? I don't know, John. He knew me when I was young. Was I hot when I was young?
Who were you hot when you were still hot?
Teenage Mutant Piana Turtle, which is the lesser known turtle, wants to know if I was hot when I was young.
Teenage Mutant Yes, you're still hot. You've always been hot.
See, it's really good to have somebody in your life that loves you. You don't got to impress the whole world. You just got to impress that one guy. So, do I remember American Gothic? Deeply.
Yeah.
Mithril would like to know if I remember. Stranger Things. Yes, Chuck Carson did a bunch of doodles based on those. They were really awesome. Oh, please, a hippogriff. That's a really good suggestion. I've been trying to decide what to paint. A hippogriff. And yes, more palette knife. As we get into landscapes, we're going to do more palette knife. And there's going to be space, and there's going to be, I honestly could paint every day. I could just paint every day. And there's even Zen Buddha coming up. Paint every day. I could just be up here every day painting with you guys. Mona says we're a beautiful couple. I really appreciate that. Yep, just Rebecca's like, yeah, you just gotta be good with the hubby, and then it's all good. Hippogriff and Thestral, agree with both of those. Agree with both of those. I do like Once Upon a Time. I do. I sometimes am more into the graphics that they do around that show, but you know, it's like weird. Like some shows are just beautiful. Like what was the one that was the Alice in Wonderland? Not Alice in Wonderland. Actually, Alice in Wonderland is just pretty. I don't know what I was thinking of.
Do you like
painting every day? I would do that.
I'm curious if everyone would comment down below. If you like this format where we put Cinnamon up here and let her answer some questions directly at the end of the show, let us know what you think at the end in the comments below, and we'll come back and check that out and see what we can do there.
Yeah. I'm in doing Zen Tootling. So thank you guys for your time.
Oh yeah, I wasn't trying to stop you. I was just saying.
Oh
no,
it's okay. We've been good. Everybody's got to live lives.
We do. I would say
be well and feed themselves, and yeah, anything in the comments too. I read the comments. I'm in there. Anything in the comments, I go back and read it. Every suggestion you make, I do write down in my book. I clock, and I kind of get a sense of what's going on and what I need to do. I could drop a painting every day, and it would just barely scratch what I want to share with you. I could drop a quest every day, and it would just barely scratch what I want to share with you. So please feel like your voice really, 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 really matters here, because without it, I would be just running around. Saturday, come with your art supplies and your canvas and a sense of play, because it's going to be, we're going to really talk about art stuff, but we're also going to be so goofy.
Yeah.
It's going to be about laughing. It's going to be about tripping me up and messing with me. It's going to be about John getting revenge for the whole week with his stuff. He's got some plans going. It should be a lot of fun. Or it will be just a fabulous train wreck that you get to watch and go, oh, what happened? So I hope to see you guys Saturday. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being on the Big Art Quest.
Yeah, and I'll say thank you for coming, liking, subscribing, sharing, joining us today. Don't forget to share this stuff with your friends. And thank you to Chuck Carson for doing our artwork, for our community manger, Lisa, and for Cinnamon the Art Sherpa for teaching us all today.
And for John Cooney for having some idea how to turn any of this equipment on. Because otherwise I would just be wishing I had a show.
This is my arcade game for the day.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for coming and hanging out.
Love you. Bye-bye.